So, you're a rookie, you haven't played any games yet, and you think it's a good idea to wear the jersey number of a player whose number has been retired by the team.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
Welcome, everybody, to JJ9 News, where we talk all things NFL all the time. I'm Jared Gare, and I representing the 904 from the 602, and today we are talking about this team behind me right here, the New York Football Giants, and their first-round pick out of LSU, wide receiver Malik Nabers, because the Giants have been very impressed with him so far in training camp, in the preseason, and he is wide receiver number 1 on the depth chart. However, he's not just wide receiver 1 on the depth chart, he is literally wide receiver number 1, because as it turns out, Malik Nabers has switched his jersey number to the number 1 jersey. So he's going to be wearing number 1 for the 2024 season and presumably beyond that. Now, by itself, this is a complete non-story. We see rookies change their numbers all the time as roster cutdowns are made, more space becomes available as fewer players are on the team. We go from 90 players where there's a lot of numbers that are being used to 53 where it's not as many numbers being used. You have more flexibility. You see guys change their numbers. But what makes this one interesting is the fact that the number 1 jersey was previously retired by the Giants for Ray Flaherty. Ray Flaherty played for the Giants. He got his jersey retired in 1935. He was the very first player, not just in Giants history, but in NFL history for that matter, to have his jersey number retired by any team. And now, nearly 90 years later, Malik Nabers is wearing that jersey. Now, it's always a bit dicey when a rookie goes for a retired number. This is not like J.J. Watt, Peyton Manning, or Jerry Rice, where they join a team after a Hall of Fame career and take the number they had their entire life. Nabers has no collegiate ties to the number 1 jersey. He wore number 8 in college. He has not worn number 1 at the collegiate level, and now he's wearing number 1 after 90 years that jersey was retired by the Giants. In a statement put out by Nabers, he said this: "Thank you to the Flaherty family for allowing me to wear the number 1 jersey for the New York Giants. I understand the responsibility, and I will do everything in my power to honor the Flaherty family and this organization. I will wear the number with great pride. Can't wait for this season to start." A very good statement there by Nabers. Now, here's the thing. Usually we have one of these unretirement jersey controversies about every 5 years. We saw with J.J. Watt and Marshall Goldberg. We saw with Peyton Manning and Frank Tribuca, Jerry Rice and Steve Largent. We've hit our quota for the early 2020s now as a result of this. Now, some are going to view this as a sign of disrespect. Some are going to view this as a guy having no respect for the older generation, that the number should stay retired. Once a number is retired, it should never come out of circulation. Having said that, if there was ever a time to unretire the number 1 jersey, unretire any jersey for that matter, and let Malik Nabers wear that number, it is now. It is absolutely now. Because, no disrespect, this was always one of the stupidest jersey retirements of all time. This is not like a Tom Brady 12 or a Peyton Manning 18. This was always one of the dumbest jersey retirements of all time. And this is coming from a historian of the game. This is coming from someone that studies the game for a living and studies the past for a living. This was always a dumb retirement. He is in the Hall of Fame because of his coaching days with Washington in 1937 and 1942 as a rival. It had nothing to do with whatsoever how he was as a player. The fact that the Giants, a long and storied franchise, had a number retired for a non-Hall of Fame player who didn't die while playing for the team like J.B. Kane or Corey Stringer or Pat Tillman, and didn't play his whole career there, a la Joe Morrison in the 60s, was always ridiculous. Especially when you consider the fact, not just that Ray Flaherty didn't play for the Giants his entire career, but when you consider the fact that he wore a crap ton of jersey numbers throughout his career with the New York Giants. Why'd they settle on 1? He also wore number 6, and he wore number 17. He wore 3 different jersey numbers during his career with the Giants. So it's not like he was associated with number 1. A lot of people might recognize Flaherty for the number 17 jersey or the number 6 jersey. He was named an All-Pro twice, and obviously he was a good player, but guess what? Plenty of guys have done that. At that point, you might as well retire Homer Jones's number. That would make more sense than Flaherty at this point. He only made 1 All-Pro appearance while wearing the number 1 jersey. The other one came when he was wearing number 17. Retiring number 1 is like if the Bulls retired Michael Jordan's jersey, and by that I mean the 45 jersey. Or if the Rams retired Torrey Holt's jersey, And I don't mean 81. I mean 88. Remember the few years where Torrey Holt wore 88? That would be what this is like. On top of that, his Giants career did not end well. He wanted to be released from the Giants after the 1935 season so he could coach the team back then that was known as the Boston Redskins, as in one of New York's biggest rivals. It's like if Josh Allen retired from the Bills after the season so he could be the new head coach of the New York Jets. So let's get out of the way. Jack Flaherty was a solid player, but he only had a few years wearing the number 1 jersey. He wore a lot of other jersey numbers his entire career. He's not in the Hall of Fame because of his playing days, and he left on pretty sour terms, all things considered. And it's not as though Flaherty played a huge part in the Giants winning the title in 1934. You might be saying, okay, well, maybe he played a part of the championship team. And it is true. He played on that 1934 championship team. But guess what? In that game, he had 2 catches for 28 yards and no touchdowns. He was not the leading receiver on the team. He was not the leading yards getter on the team. He was not even in the top 3 in terms of getting yards. That season, he did nothing to help the team out. He had 8 catches for 76 yards. That's it. This is not like a Kawhi Leonard situation with the Raptors or anything along those lines. So if there was ever a time to unretire a number, if there was ever a situation where I have no problem taking the number out of circulation, it's with Ray Flaherty, because it never made sense why the number was retired in the first place. On top of that, you have to remember that sometimes unretirements of jersey numbers can actually boost the legacy of some players. Now, obviously, there are some guys that'll be remembered forever, and you'll always associate them with their number, like Joe Montana with the 49ers, Dan Marino with the Dolphins, Johnny Unitas, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady. You get the idea. There are plenty of guys that they don't need their jersey number to be unretired for their legacy to improve. But there are plenty of guys and plenty of retirements where unretiring the jersey exposes a younger generation to the older game and to that player and that person. Take a few years ago when J.J. Watt took the number 99 jersey and got it out of retirement from Marshall Goldberg. How many people outside of football historians or diehard Cardinals fans knew who Marshall Goldberg was before his 99 got unretired for J.J. Watt? Also, look at the Broncos when number 18 got unretired. Frank Tribuca had the number 4. How many people outside of Bronco fans and football historians knew who he was before his number 18 got unretired for Peyton Manning? You get the idea. Ray Flaherty has never been talked about in the 21st century as much as he's been talked about in the last 24 hours. I can promise you that. You had never thought of Ray Flaherty in your life before this moment right here. He probably has not been talked about this much since his death at the age of 90 in 1994. And now, because of Malik Nabers and this announcement, people are discovering how important he was to the game, how good of a player he was. In 1932, remember, he was a very good player in 1932. He won the Triple Crown. He led league in receptions, receiving yards, and receiving touchdowns. And how good of a coach he was. That's a win. And his family absolutely recognizes this, said, hey, by Malik Nabers wearing the number 1 jersey, it means more people know who Ray Flaherty is and his contributions to the Giants and his contributions to the game. And that's a net positive. And on top of that, the biggest thing of all, he got permission. Malik Nabers got the permission of Ray Flaherty's family to use the number. And you know what? I think that's all we need. Malik Nabers asked, can I wear the number 1 jersey? The Flaherty family said, go for it. We would love it. And that's that. If you want to get upset about a player getting permission to use a number of a player that hadn't played in 90 years, that didn't even wear that number his entire career with the team, that isn't a Hall of Fame player, that is dead, and that everyone who has memories of seeing him play is dead, well, that's on you. That's really on you at this point, because I don't know what more you could do. Again, Ray Flaherty's jersey number never should have been retired in the first place. It was. Nabers got permission from Flaherty to use the number, his family, I should say, and they said yes. They said yes, and now people know who Ray Flaherty is compared to the past. So I see this as a win. I have no problem with Malik Nabers wearing the number 1 jersey, even though retirement jersey numbers can be very much a controversial subject, as we saw with Scott Mitchell with the Baltimore Ravens, and we saw with Dwayne Thomas with Washington when he wanted to wear the number of Slingin' Sammy Baugh. This one I have no problem with. I have no problem with this one whatsoever. And Malik Nabers, by wearing the number 1 jersey, more people know who Ray Flaherty is, and that's a net positive for everyone involved. I don't see how anyone loses in this situation. I don't know why people would be upset about this one, but I have no problem with what Malik Nabers is doing by wearing the number 1 jersey. And I have no problem with the Giants taking it out of retirement for all the reasons listed before. But what are your thoughts on Malik Nabers wearing the number 1 jersey? Do you like the move? Do you not like the move? Do you think the number should have stayed retired? Do you think it should be retired in the first place? What are your thoughts on retired numbers in general? Let me know everything down below in the comments. And that is going to do for this episode of JJ9 News. Be sure you like and subscribe. It helps the channel out a lot. And be sure to check my main channel, JaguarGator9, where we talk all things NFL history all the time. Until next time, this is JaguarGator9 signing off. And as always, go Jags.